You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the September 13th, 2023 meeting of the LaPorte County Solid Waste District Board. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
It would have saved the district $2 million if they would have had a 10-year agreement versus a 5-year agreement.
So go to page 2. Page 2 is the proposal that we submitted at the last meeting that I think got approved. And we gave a price concession and we asked for a 10-year contract. So we're open to either option, but what we did propose and what I think you approved was that pricing with the 10-year contract. And then the important thing in all of this, I think, is the first page, which shows really, I think there's 3 options where we think, what was in the initial contract spec was what Clay refers to as the top option. There was a 5-year contract with a 5-year.
This page.
It's the first page with the green and red and yellow squares. So a 5-year contract, what happens, you do 5 years, and then there's, in the green box, you have to either decide, do we renew or do we renegotiate or rebid? And then at the end of, and usually with Indiana, if you have a 5-year contract, you can do a 5-year renewal, but at the end of that renewal, you don't have an option to renew anymore, you have to go to bid. So what we proposed, our option 2, initially what we proposed was a 10-year contract with a 10-year renewal, but what's kind of not common, what we thought was a enticing option was to offer the yellow box, which if after 5 years either one of us want to cancel, we can cancel. So it's a 10-year contract with a 5-year out is what we had worded in our presentation. And after having a little bit of disagreement, that's what we asked for. Clay would prefer the 5-year. What our most recent suggestion is the third option, which is still a 10-year contract, but I think what's kind of important is if there's no renewal clause, then you end up with a red box after 10 years. If you have that one, so down under term option 3, 10-year contract with an open renewal term, the line under that says both parties can extend this agreement at any time in writing before the conclusion of the term. So if there's a renewal clause in the contract at the end of 10 years, again, either party can both parties have to agree to continue, or either party can cancel. And so what we're trying to present is that a 10-year contract with a 5-year out doesn't put you in any worse position. If you don't like us, or if you think you can do better in the market by going to bid in 5 years, either one of us can give in writing that we'd like to end the contract, and it ends. So the way, from a pictorial standpoint here is on a 10-year contract, if nobody does anything after 5 years, it just continues. And what Kyle's presenting here with our price that we present on page 2, we've got a fixed price for 10 years, and we don't go in and renegotiate price very often, or hardly ever. There are companies that are pretty good at doing that, good on their part, but we're giving you a 10-year scale, and we intend to honor that.
So one question I have, team option 1, if we're only to do the 5 years, and then team option 2 having the 10-year with the 5-year option after 5 years, are prices year 1 through 5 the same, either option?
So on the second sheet is our pricing schedule that was submitted at our, so the pricing that's currently on the table is what's on page 2 of your presentation. It's year 1 through year 10, and I think it's a 5% increase.
That's correct.
But that's whether we go the first 5 years, or if we do a 5-year contract or a 10-year contract with a 5-year renewal.
Right, so that's your price for 5 years or 10 years.
Either way. So there's no incentive to go longer. Discount-wise, those prices will remain the same whether it's a 5-year or 10-year deal.
Right.
And if I could that's where I would lob this back in, is that we genuinely, we're kind of, what do I say, passionate about the idea of the 10-year because we believe it's a good idea. But like, if you guys just simply don't feel comfortable with the 5-year, that's fine. Just be aware that 5 years from now, what we're highlighting is the uncertainty in the market. You're leaving a wide open window for a potential big price adjustment 5 years from now. I'm not saying that that would happen. I'm just saying you just don't know what the market's going to do. And based on history, better to bake in that lower guaranteed pricing adjustment over a 10-year period rather than 5.
I mean, none of us know what's gonna happen with cost of labor, fuel, insurance, et cetera, right? So we've experienced high inflation recently, but if in 5 or 10 years, things change and you think that you're paying too much and you can get a better deal, go to market. And really, in any of these options, you're only locked into a 5-year, or you've only committed to a 5-year deal. So we just think that really, certainly we expect that you guys will love us and we'll be here for 10 years. And then maybe we'll be here for another. So in option 3 here, if after 10 years you want to renew for 1 year, you renew for 1 year. Without any renewal clause on a 10-year contract, you get to the end of 10 years, and if there's no verb at all, then you're kind of forced to rebid. And then we go to market, and who knows what happens. So
I just, through all the other discussions, I didn't realize we were talking, I didn't even think about asking about years of service or how long the contract was. So I mean, I kind of throw back to Clay, what is the standard agreement you've always had?
The last 10 years, we've had 5-year contracts with 5-year renewals. We actually went out for proposals asking for a 3-year contract. And then we came back and gave everybody an option to resubmit if they want for their proposal to see if we can get maybe something better. The public came back with the 5-year proposal and Borden came back with a 10-year proposal. Now, I took it up on myself that for the first 5 years, the price was going to be the same, whether it's a 5-year contract or a 10-year contract. So that's why I would like to stay with the 5 years. It still has the option after 5 years, if you folks want to renew it for an additional 5. You have that option.
So you would prefer which option?
I prefer the one that I have in the contract, which is basically number 1.
Any thoughts?
Last,
Mr. Muller?
I think the last meeting, I know it did come up, the topic of committing ourselves for too long. There was some lively debate, or at least conversation about that. We got several of those members missing today, but
if I could add to that is in option 2 or 3, you're only committed to 5 years. There's a 5-year out. So if you choose to get out in 5 years, either party can cancel the contract. Does someone have a question?
I was curious, like, so term option 1 and term option 2, years 6 through 10, are those the same prices as well as the first 5?
The way we do business, yes. To us, a renewal means we extend at the same price and terms as what the initial term was. There are companies that are pretty good at getting price increases on a renewal. I don't think that's the proper way to do it, but in our offer, our renewal in years 6 through 10, the pricing that you'll see is what's already on the table here. So our whole sales pitch or request would be, to us, the 5-year contract and the 10-year contract isn't much different, because if you don't like us after 5, you can fire us. The only thing it gives you is that at year 10, with an option to continue, we both have an option to continue. If you don't go with that option, then after 10 years, you're going to have to rebid, and who knows what happens. The last 2 5-year cycles you guys have had, you've had pretty big price increases.
But you're also putting a little bit of fear factor in there for us to say, hey, if we only go 5 years, the 687 was gone on a rebid if we open it up.
Well, with a rebid, who knows what happens? I mean, that's just, sometimes the reason you would go to a rebid is you think you can get a better price in the market than what you have on the table. And my whole point to all this is, which any of these options, we both, but you certainly have the option to get out after 5 or 10. If we go for 10 more and you want to get out after, so if you go with option 2, we do a 10-year contract with a 5-year renewal and renew the same thing, and we're fine with that. Or with option 3, you do the 10-year contract, which is pretty much the same thing as the 5-year contract with a renewal. But you have the option after 10 years, if you wanted to renew for 1 year, you could renew for 1 year. If you want to renew for 3 years, it's pretty common for what we see as municipalities get behind the gun in the last year of the contract, and either wait too long or something changes economically and they really wish they could extend for 1 more year. But if you have a red dot at the end of 10 years or whatever, now I've seen municipalities do whatever they want to do and extend anyway or whatever, what I mean? So there's certain municipalities play by the book and do everything, I'm gonna say the way is historically traditional, but we just think that a 10-year contract with a renewal clause gives us both the most flexibility. But we'll accept the 5-year with a 5-year, that's my pitch. This 10-year with a renewal, I think, is the most flexible for both parties. The pricing's already set for 5 through 10. And if you hate us after 5, you can, or if you think the market has changed and trucks are cheaper in 5 years, labor's cheaper in 5 years, so, whatever. That's why you go to bid.
Members of the CAC board, thoughts, comments?
For what it's worth, I think 5% per year increases seems kind of high compared to historically, we were averaging more like, 3.7, 3.2% annual increases. Why 5% over those instead? Are you projecting significantly increased costs in the future, or?
Yeah, I mean, CPI this last year was 8, so you tell me what's
Inflation been high the last couple of years, but
So
looking at a
5 is-
longer, time period, it's not historically been that high.
fair point. I mean, so today we have to pick a number.
Sure.
Where's the 5% that you're,
On page
That's on
2,
page 2.
mentions, please note Borden's proposal includes no fuel surcharges, no environmental fees, no administrative fees, 5% annual pricing adjustment. So each year it'll go up 5%, correct?
Yeah, so on page 3, our price is gonna look a lot like that green line at 5% instead of 3.7 or, currently you're in but you also did a 37% at year 5. So I think if you'd have done 5 straight across, I haven't done that math. The page 3 is based on if you would have had a 10-year contract with a 3.7% price increase and it maintained steady, you would have been $2 million better than taking a 30% price increase in year 5.
And you offer the same 5% annual increase, whether it's a 5-year or a 10-year contract, correct?
Correct.
So, don't you have some upfront mobilization costs of trying to switch and take over a county with 42,000 some customers? Wouldn't there be some sort of savings for you guys knowing that you're locked in for a longer duration, you can spread that mobilization cost over a longer period of time?
Which is why the price you see there, our 10-year price is lower than what we initially proposed. So yes, for us, a longer term contract, we give a discount. And that's what we've done. Again, in our proposal, we were proposing a 10-year contract we reduced the price 5 or 10 cents or something. And
So bottom line, the cost, the annual increase percentage and the base cost is different whether we go with option 1 or option 2, correct? Or they're the same,
no, we have the same pricing at this point.
same pricing?
And we haven't.
It's the original proposal that's the gap here, because I don't believe you were at the were you at the last
No, it's
meeting?
not in the last one.
Right, so our proposal to the district was $543 a home, and now we're at $538 a home in exchange for a longer term agreement as opposed to a shorter term agreement. That was our alternative proposal. And I would just go all the way back to, we'll still accept a 5-year. We're not at an impasse where we're saying we won't do it. We're just having a discussion.
Yeah.
still at the 538?
Yeah, it's all we're here only to discuss a 538 rate and a 5% annual increase. So those two things are set in stone unless there's some creative discussion otherwise. But I feel like those two things are set in stone. It's how many years do we want to go here and what renewal options do we want to have?
And I understand from your spot, you just want to lock out the competitors too, from rebidding after 5.
It's more like, we're not gonna be able to do that regardless. If you guys get into at the 5-year mark, you see what I'm saying? Like, at the 5-year mark, we're not locking out competition in any, more so in one scenario than another. What we are doing is we're leaving opportunities in there where if you and I both want to extend, we can, because there are times where we might both want to extend and not be able to. And we've seen this with municipalities in the past. And it stings them. Like, St. Joe County as an example really quick, they did not want to extend in our last extension. I don't know if you guys have heard this story before, forgive me, but they chose not to extend, went out to bid, and our extension proposal was much, much lower than the competitive market. That's
And we've had 2 10-year contracts with St. Joe. So we're in our second 10-year contract with St. Joe. And, you asked a question about capital, and yes, there's a fairly significant cost of buying trucks and hiring drivers, and your carts are in place here. We only supply new carts every year, so that helps, but that's why a 3-year contract isn't as exciting to us as a 5 or 10. And we certainly acknowledge that, again, if you, for whatever reason, after 5 years, you want to go back to market, you'll have the option to do that. So,
That's 0 penalties? No penalty.
just the contract ends, either one of us would send the other party a letter saying we choose to not extend the contract, we're going to go back out to bid, so.
Mr. Przewolski?
Yeah, so if we go with the contract, the 5-year and then the 10-year, so what's the rate today? Is it this 5.38,
That's your first rate, yeah.
right?
yes, sir.
And that price will be locked in for 10 years?
No,
Is that what we're
that's-
saying, or am I
That's year
wrong?
one, that's the year one price. It changes every year by 5%, it goes up 5% every year.
Oh, I see. Okay,
But what we're telling you is we're giving you 10 years worth of fixed price. But after 5, if you want to go to market, you can end.
okay.
But we're just saying that
Yeah.
we're not gonna take you to 5 years and then do a renewal and raise your price by 30%. We're giving you a 10-year fixed pricing schedule, and we'll go either way.
Got it.
I think it's
Now, Clay, why don't you like that again?
Well, I think, to me, it's basically the same thing. We'll give them a 5-year contract with a 5-year renewal. And after the 4th year, if we're not happy, either one of us can terminate the contract.
Right.
But I think if you go with a 10-year renewal, you're locking yourselves in for 20 years possibly. That's an awful long.
Well, I'm not even talking about 20-year service. I'm just looking at this 5-year package and the 10-year
Yeah, and
package.
my proposal is you go 5 years, then we have a 5-year renewal, so it turns into a 10-year contract.
So you're saying term option 2, you're saying don't do the 5-year, or I guess you're saying term option 1?
Yeah, yeah. That's what Clay's saying.
And that's what you're saying too.
I just take exception to the lock-in, what both of you are saying, that you don't lock yourself into a 20-year contract.
Right.
You're locked into a 5-year option with any of these options that you go. We're just trying to, and is there a benefit to us of going 10 years? Yes. We think we'll be happy with you guys for 10 years, and we think you'll be happy with us.
And honestly, management-wise, it'd probably be better to have a 10-year contract than you just print the file and move on. But as an elected official, I'm not sure if you want to be locked into a 10-year proposal.
Again, locked in for 5.
Locked in for 5, renegotiate.
Okay.
Or
Mr.
extend.
Brooks.
Oh, thank you. To me, it just seems like you're evaluating everything halfway into year 4 or year 4 anyways, right? So whether it's 5 years or 10 years, I think the longer one gives you the same freedom as the first one, right? And then maybe after, if you only go with the 5-year one, maybe the rates are a lot higher and you end up paying more than you would have if you would have just done the 10 one. Because I mean, if you go with the 10, 4th year in, you can explore other options. But, if everything else is more expensive, you still have whatever they originally proposed, which may be good, may be bad. I don't know. Just seems like a lot more flexibility
Thoughts from other board members?
Yeah, so, yeah, obviously we got the 5% per year increase, years 1 through 10. I see a static number here for our monthly recycling rebate of $76.50. Is there any reason why that's not adjusted as the term goes out?
Well, I think we asked Clay what he wanted, he told us what he wanted, and I think that's the number we put in there, so that is just a static number at this point.
And I think super important to point out here is that a fixed rebate is just that, it's just a fixed rebate. In other words, we just give it to you, but we bake that right into our cost. It's not based on the like for instance, if it was a rebate based on market, then there's something to discuss there, but long story short is you're just asking for a, forgive me, I don't remember the number, $7,000 credit, and we're just putting that in our cost.
It's $76.50, which basically comes down to like 18 cents come off the price.
Yeah.
And that number might be a little higher than what you have currently, but I mean, it's.
Yeah, currently it's
7,000, yeah, so if we beat the other guy by 650.
Do you have other clients that where you offer rebates based off of market prices for that recycling material?
We do. St. Joe County has a market commodity rebate. And right now, the markets are so bad that there's a window of where there's a payment and where there's not a payment. And currently, the recycling markets are down. Over 5 or 10 years, that could change significantly. But so St. Joe has an option that if the markets improve, they could get some extra money, and it's not fixed. It'll be variable based on whatever the market is versus cost.
So we prefer those, frankly. It helps us share in the risk of the market, whereas you guys are, if that makes sense. It doesn't matter how bad the recycling markets are, you guys are safe.
So do I have a motion or other comments?
And I just have a question. Mr. Germany on this, just on the pricing. So on year 6, it would be $7.60, what's that, 9.65, $7.65 monthly recycling rate. So how is that rates, how are they figured out? I mean, could they be cheaper after 5 years?
I think you're looking at that's $7,650, the monthly.
Oh, yeah.
Recycling is $687.
You're right, yeah. So I guess, all right, so getting back to the question, I was on the wrong line. So that $6.87 for year 6, now how is all that calculated out? I mean, in 5 years from now, can you guys come back and say, hey, it'll be less? Because it can't be more, right? Because this is what the contract would be.
So,
You go ahead.
well, I mean, the way these usually work is you ask for a pricing schedule for year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5.
It's kind of
Whatever.
guaranteed 5%.
There are some times where you do a CPI adjustment or something, but this is a lot easier. Is you ask for it's probably similar to what we've had here. It's more typical you get a price for year 1, a price for year 2, and typically those go up by some percent.
So is that the price we'll be paying
Yes, so
in year 6 if we go with this?
yes, we're proposing a fixed pricing schedule for 10 years.
Would that be
But
on
no.
for years 11 through 20 as well?
Well, if we renewed after year 10, I don't know if I'll still be here, but what I would expect, for us, a renewal means you renew at the same price and terms. So at year 10, year 11 would be a 5% increase. To me, that's what a renewal is.
Yeah, me too, I was just checking.
Again, you guys and whoever's in charge at the time might agree to something different. I don't suppose anybody would argue if the price needs to come down, you'd probably accept a lower price, but
But this is the highest they'll be.
yeah, we're committing to these prices today.
It's important to note, you guys, that anytime the window is open at the 5-year mark, for instance, that's a mutual window. It's you guys can cancel and we can cancel. In other words, I don't want to eliminate the fact that because we're leaving this 5-year window open, that if recycling markets are terrible and Lord knows what else is going on, that we would say, goodness, we have to take our opportunity here to either renegotiate a different proposal going forward or send it out to bid. In the same exact way, you guys can say, gosh, lots changed since inflation. If you guys won't bring your price down, to your point, if we won't, you could say, if you guys won't bring your price down at the 5-year mark, we're going out to bid. Because we believe that the market's better than this.
So Clay, are you looking at, you like term option one?
But whatever the board thinks is wise, I mean, honor their decision.
I got a question, like, if we did go with 10-year contract, which of the two 10 years do you prefer? I would presume number 2, option 2.
I'm not exactly sure what the big difference is between, because you still have the option after
Right.
year 15 to make it a 15-year contract.
Right.
So Clay, when we submitted our request for the contract language, the way yours is worded is 5 years and then 5 more years. So option 2 here is worded as a 10-year contract with a 10-year renewal. It's defined as, the renewal option is defined in the contract. You can renew for 10 more years. Option 3, we changed the language to be very open, to say after the first 10 years, both parties can agree and we negotiate that term at that time. So to me, the option 3 gives you and us, you could, with option 3, you could renew for 1 more year if you wanted. Or you could renew for 10 more years. You probably can't renew for more than 10. I'm pretty sure, the attorney correct me, but you can renew a contract for the same length of the initial contract. So again, we would have to, or you'd have to bless the wording, but.
So do I have a motion or?
I've got a quick question for our attorney. Option 2 would be, I mean, it seems like whether it's option 1 or option 2, the first 10 years is going to be the same thing anyway. In the contractor, I guess this one's slightly different, but can you verify the option to get out with no penalties if we go with option 2, 10-year at 5 years? Just to make sure it's in writing.
Yeah, to make sure it's in the contract. Yeah, there's no penalties at all in the contract for getting out of it.
Mr. Chair. Clay, do you take exception to doing something like option 1, but with an open renewal period, open renewal terms, so that at the end of 10 years, the district could choose to continue to renew the contract if it wanted, but only if it wanted to, rather than a forced go to rebid at the end of 10 years?
That would be fine, but that also gives you the same option in option 2.
True. Although it ends then at the end of 20 years.
When I would say, I think that is possibly illegal. Like, I don't think you can do a 5-year, well, I don't think it's proper, at least, to do a 5-year contract. Let's renew for 5 years, and then at that 10-year mark, say, let's renew for another 5 years. I think that's wrong. And I don't know. You know, there's laws, but when it comes to people who do what they do, and it's either illegal or not illegal, but I think it's a lot cleaner to do a 10-year contract and have an option to either end.
Yeah, I have to say, I feel like at the end of 10 years, the price will have gone up 55%. That does seem like a lot. If inflation goes up that much, it's gonna suck.
And if you want out, then you can, nobody's locking, the word lock-in is not accurate. Nobody's locked into renewing at 10 years.
And whatever option you choose, the contract basically says after year 4, as long as we give notice, then we can get out of the contract.
Public services also had a percentage increase every year, which was pretty significant. And as they brought up, when we had to renew, it went way above 5. So I prefer to be safe and have a guarantee myself, but that's just my opinion. It's up to the director.
So do I have that motion then?
I have one more.
Oh, yeah, please.
Yeah, I have one more comment. So, I'm gonna say, well, I'm not gonna make a motion yet, but I like the idea of having price lock-ins all the way out to 10 years, right, at $8.35. But at year 5, if we don't like what we see, we just say, we're going out for bids, although we already see what you guys have locked into, and we may feel comfortable in 5 years from now saying, yeah, it's worked out so good, it's not, nothing's terribly bad, and So with that being said, I'm gonna make the motion that we accept the contract, which would be in option number 3, where the 10-year contract, open or term renewals, both parties can extend this agreement at any time in writing before the conclusion of the term, and after 5 years, either party may cancel with written notice. And plus, at the end of 10 years, you can rebid if you want to, and you can go 5 years or 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, whatever that is. So that's my motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
So I have a motion and a second. Discussion, so that term option 3, but it can be canceled for any reason. After your 5.
After year 5.
After 5.
Further discussion? All in favor? Oh,
Yeah, I'll say just from the standpoint of economics and looking at the prices being locked in from right now, I mean, okay, we may be off a couple cents 5 years from now, but we'll know about that in 5 years from now. But to sit here and have prices locked in, that's like saying, hey, see that Cadillac sitting out there? It'll be worth $10,000 in 5 years. You may want to wait and get it then versus paying whatever now. So, yeah, that's my reasoning behind that.
further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. New business. Attorney reduction hourly rate. Oh, I'm sorry.
If the board will indulge me, I'd like to make 2 comments. If my prices increase like theirs do, I should be getting $300 an hour today. That's back to 2005, okay? My normal hourly rate for somebody who's been practicing law almost 30 years is $350 an hour. I do this because I like to contribute to my community. I started doing government work in 2005. The hourly rate in 2005 was $150 an hour, and it still is. And all those years on the council, I would listen to the county council, give raises to the employees, raises to department heads, raises to elected officials. Never the attorney fees got increased. If you run the inflation calculator from 2005 at $150 an hour to today, it comes out to $247 an hour. The attorneys in this county are woefully underpaid and have not received raises for 20 years. Now, the county raised the rate to $175 an hour, which I still think is woefully inadequate. It's not even close to what the market is. Those are my comments.
So what are like the county council, and I'm sorry, is it 175 for county?
Yes, the way the county does it pretty much is professional services, so the commissioners set the rates and keep the rates for all the attorneys except for apparently Mr. Staples. That was not a political shot, it's true.
The council has a fixed rate that they use, and then if it's something kind of outside of what's in the scope of the council attorney, then you would get $175 an hour. So there's a out there. I would make a motion to adjust our attorney rate to match that of the county at $175.
I will.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion. My only concern with that is this has got to be a small amount of work. And when you have somebody for just a small amount of work to get quality, which I think Doug is, I think you have to pay more. I was going to lean more into the 250 to in that range to 300, but my only thoughts.
I was gonna say the same thing. We always follow what the county sets. The county set it at 175. So maybe we should set it at a different rate than the county follow us, but I don't know if that'll ever happen. We've got 2 county council members here, so it fell on some ears anyways.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion passes.
I do have one more thing, Mr. Chairman, if I could. We have an abundance of mulch out at our compost site. So we're gonna do a free mulch giveaway for all the residents of LaPorte County in October through December. Just try to move some of that product out, open up some space. We're taking in way more than we can get rid of. So we run that to 25 cubic yards per resident. So they have from October 1st to December 31st, Tuesday through Friday, they come in and get the product.
I hope my wife's not listening. I'll be out in the weekend.
Porter County does that too, if you get too much, and I think you get a month to come in and get it, and that's it.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all.
We got some things tonight.